Did you know that Taiwan, a tiny island, is at the heart of a global AI war between the US and China? It's crazy, right? But here's the thing, Taiwan isn't just any island. It's the world's biggest producer of semiconductors, the tiny chips that power everything from your smartphone to the most advanced AI systems. And guess what? Both the US and China are fighting to control this tech goldmine. Here's the twist. China is using Taiwan's AI and semiconductor dominance to trap the US in a high-stakes tech battle. While the US is busy putting up walls with export controls and restrictions, China is finding clever ways to get around them. They're stockpiling chips, developing open-source AI models, and offering cheaper tech to countries the US is ignoring. In this video, we're going to break down how China is using Taiwan's AI strategy to outsmart the US. We'll talk about Taiwan's role in the global AI ecosystem, how China is bypassing US restrictions, and what this means for the future of tech and global power. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll see why this tiny island is such a big deal in the AI race. Let's dive in. Here's a shocking fact. Taiwan makes over 60% of the world's semiconductors, the brains behind every AI system. And right now, China is using this to trap the US in a tech war. Sounds like a movie plot, right? But it's real, and it's happening right now. Think about it. AI is the future, and chips are the fuel. Without Taiwan's semiconductors, the US and China can't power their AI systems. But here's the kicker. China is playing smart. While the US is focused on blocking China from getting advanced chips, China is finding loopholes. They're stockpiling chips, building open-source AI models, and even smuggling tech through shell companies. And it's working. China's AI models are catching up to the US, and they're offering cheaper, unrestricted tech to countries the US is ignoring. This isn't just about who builds the best AI, it's about who controls the global tech ecosystem. In this video, I'll show you how China is using Taiwan's AI strategy to outmaneuver the US. We'll talk about Taiwan's chip dominance, China's sneaky tactics, and what this means for the future. Stick around, this is one story you don't want to miss. Taiwan's role in the global AI ecosystem. Alright, let's talk about Taiwan. This small island is a giant when it comes to tech, especially semiconductors. If you don't know, semiconductors are the tiny chips that power everything. Your phone, your laptop, and even the most advanced AI systems. And guess what? Taiwan makes over 60% of the world's semiconductors. That's huge. The star of the show here is TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. They're the ones making the most advanced chips, like the 3nm and 4nm chips. These chips are super important because they're what AI systems need to run. Without them, AI development would slow down big time. But it's not just about making chips. Taiwan is also a hub for AI research. They're working with top US universities like Stanford and MIT to push the boundaries of AI. This means Taiwan isn't just a factory for chips, it's also a place where new AI ideas are born. Now guess why this matters. Both the US and China rely on Taiwan for their AI ambitions. The US uses Taiwan's chips to power its AI systems, and China is trying to get its hands on them too. This makes Taiwan a key player in the US-China tech war. So to sum it up, Taiwan's semiconductor dominance and AI research make it a critical part of the global AI ecosystem. Without Taiwan, the AI race would look very different. China's strategy to leverage Taiwan's AI capabilities. Now let's talk about how China is using Taiwan's tech to its advantage. Even though there's a lot of political tension between China and Taiwan, China is still finding ways to get what it needs from Taiwan's tech sector. First, China is building strong economic ties with Taiwan's tech companies. For example, Chinese tech giant Huawei relies on TSMC to make its advanced chips. Even with US restrictions, China is finding ways to keep these connections alive. Second, China is focusing on open-source AI models. These are AI systems that anyone can use and modify. One example is DeepSeek R1, a Chinese AI model that rivals OpenAI's GPT-4. The best part, it's cheaper and more accessible, which makes it super attractive to countries that can't afford expensive US tech. But here's where it gets sneaky. China is also stockpiling chips. Before the US put export controls in place, Chinese companies like DeepSeek bought up thousands of advanced chips like NVIDIA's A100 GPUs. They knew the restrictions were coming, so they prepared in advance. And if that's not enough, China is also smuggling chips. They're using shell companies and other tricks to get around US restrictions. For example, Chinese companies have been caught using TSMC chips in their products, even though they're not supposed to. So, what's the big picture? China is using Taiwan's tech to build its own AI systems, bypass US restrictions, and offer cheaper solutions to the world. This is how they're trapping the US, by playing smart and staying one step ahead. How China is trapping the US. Okay, so now we know China is using Taiwan's tech to its advantage. But how exactly is this trapping the US? Let's break it down. First, China is undermining US export controls. The US tried to block China from getting advanced chips by putting restrictions in place, but China found ways around them. They're using Taiwan as a middleman to get the chips they need. For example, Chinese companies are smuggling TSMC chips through shell companies. This means the US restrictions aren't working as well as they hoped. Second, China is offering cheaper AI solutions to the rest of the world. While the US is focused on keeping its tech locked down, China is giving countries access to open-source AI models like DeepSeek R1. These models are almost as good as the ones from the US, but they cost way less. This is making China the go-to choice for countries that can't afford expensive US tech. And it's not just about money. China is also embedding itself in global data ecosystems. They're building data centers and cloud infrastructure in emerging markets through initiatives like the Digital Silk Road. This means they're gaining access to tons of data, which they can use to train even better AI models. Finally, there's the military angle. China's access to Taiwan's tech could give it a huge advantage in developing AI-powered weapons and hacking systems. This is a big deal because it could shift the balance of power in ways the US isn't ready for. So to sum it up, China is trapping the US by bypassing restrictions, offering cheaper tech, and embedding itself in global markets. It's a smart strategy and it's working. The US response and future outlook. Now let's talk about how the US is responding to all of this. Spoiler alert, it's not going great. The US is trying to fight back with export controls and investments in domestic AI research. For example, they passed the CHIPS and Science Act to boost chip production at home. But here's the problem. The US is focusing too much on defense. They're putting up walls to block China, but they're not running fast enough to stay ahead. One big issue is that the US is alienating its allies. Countries like Poland and Israel feel left out of the US Trusted Countries list, which gives them limited access to AI tech. This is pushing them closer to China, who's happy to offer them cheaper alternatives. Another problem is overregulation. The US is making it harder for its own companies to do business in emerging markets. This is giving China a chance to step in and take over. For example, Chinese cloud providers are expanding in places where US companies can't compete because of strict rules. So, what's the future look like? If the US doesn't change its strategy, it risks losing its lead in AI. China is catching up fast and they're playing the long game. The US needs to balance restrictions with innovation and make sure it's not just playing defense. The role of data in the AI race. Alright, let's talk about something just as important as chips: data. You see, AI systems need two things to work: chips for computing power and data to learn from. And guess what? China is winning the data game too. Here's how China is building data centers and cloud infrastructure in countries all over the world. Through projects like the Digital Silk Road, they're offering cheap cloud services to emerging markets. This means they're collecting tons of data from these countries, which they can use to train better AI models. But there's a catch. China's national security laws give the government access to data stored on Chinese servers. So, if a country uses Chinese cloud providers like Alibaba Cloud or Huawei Cloud, their data might not be fully private. This gives China a huge advantage in developing AI systems tailored to different regions. For the US, this is a big problem. If more countries rely on Chinese cloud providers, China will have access to global data ecosystems. This could help them build AI models that are way ahead of the US. So data isn't just a side note, it's a key part of the AI race, and right now China is leading the way. Conclusion. So let's wrap this up. China is using Taiwan's AI and semiconductor dominance to trap the US in a high-stakes tech war. They're bypassing US restrictions, offering cheaper tech to the world, and embedding themselves in global data ecosystems. Meanwhile, the US is struggling to keep up, focusing too much on defense and not enough on innovation. This isn't just about who builds the best AI, it's about who controls the future of technology. If the US doesn't change its strategy, it risks losing its lead to China. But here's the good news, it's not too late. The US can still turn things around by balancing restrictions with innovation and working closer with its allies. Thanks for sticking with us through this deep dive. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Let me know in the comments what you think about the US-China AI rivalry. And stay tuned for more videos on how tech is shaping our world. See you next time.